This week's tip is, what do tenants do when they're overpaying on their rent?
Yeah. And so backing up, how do tenants get to be overpaying rent? When we see a rental market like we've seen in the last 3 years, where rents are on a continual incline, they only go up and up and up and up. And then something happens to the economy, or immigration stops, or Donald Trump comes to power. Guess what? Supply increases too much, and then rents start to fall.
Yeah, and we've seen this time and time again. So Tim and I have been doing this for 20 years, and people get called out every year on this. And it's simply because they're buying in the wrong properties in the wrong areas and too much supply comes on. So as soon as too much supply comes on, and we can refer to the new home areas, Tim, on this topic, on what do tenants do when rents are so high. What they're doing is they're looking on Rent Faster and they're seeing new properties come on the market for rent that are way cheaper. And then they start complaining about things. So this, Tim, lines up with our topic tonight on how to be a great landlord and look after tenants in 2025. This is all about not being too greedy, and we try and tell you, and sometimes it's not the investor's fault because, Tim, the rents are set at that rate. So when we're buying rental properties, we're going in, we're looking on Rent Faster, we're comparing apples to apples on what, say, a basement suite would rent for, say, in Belmont. And I can tell you, last year, mid-year in Belmont, basement suites were renting for $1,400, in some cases plus utilities. This year, you'd be lucky to rent out the same property for $1,000 per month, utilities included. So this, Tim, and I've had a number of calls this week on crew property leasing, people wanting to use our services, and we actually had to turn them down. We're actually not even taking those properties on if they're not our clients. If we didn't buy the property for them, there's no way we're touching them because, Tim, you went on in Glacier Ridge. We had a call from a gentleman that wanted to rent out the upstairs and downstairs of a starter home. So a starter home basement suite, Tim, would be roughly 750 square feet.
This one, I believe, was a little smaller.
A little smaller. Yeah. And how much competition was there for that property?
We looked in Glacier Ridge, and this is on Rent Faster alone, so it's not on Marketplace or anything like that. There were 35 basement suites for rent. And this is a new community that's just starting to be built. So every second property that gets built in that neighborhood has a legal basement suite.
Yeah, so you know what? That property, and when I told him $1,000, he panicked. He's like, well, rents were 1,400. Well, they're not 1,400. They're not going to be 1,400, Tim, for another 3 years, probably, with the amount of supply that's coming on. So unfortunately, that investor, we did not buy that property for him. He turned up to the show home, and at that time, Tim, they told him the going rents, which they were, which isn't sustainable because at that time in Glacier Ridge, a year and a half ago, before it got built, there was no supply. Now there's an oversupply.
Yeah, and this is happening in all of those new communities in the suburbs. So you can go down in the deep southeast, Belmont, Creekside, things like that. Go up in the north, you've got Glacier Ridge, you've got Ambleton. And in the northeast, even in the far parts of Cityscape, Redstone, all of these well, not all of these, a lot of these new homes are being built with legal suites in the basements by the builders. So you're getting tons and tons of new competition coming online every single day.
Yeah, and just one last point to this while tenants are looking elsewhere. If they decide to go, I can tell you, and Tim will definitely tell you, that it's very, very hard to stop them. Yes, you can tell them that they're responsible for the rental rate that they sign for. But at the end of the day, can you get blood from a stone? No, you can't. So you have to realize that, you know what? Sometimes you have to let them go, break the lease. And we're even in a situation where we're seeing this ourselves and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. So what you have to do is be proactive. If they say they're going to leave because they found a better rental rate somewhere else, be proactive and put that unit back on the market and see if you can get it rented before they even leave.
Yeah.
So you got to minimize your losses on that.
Yeah. Tonight, we're going to go through all of these strategies for that not to happen. But if this is your first Crew tip of the week, simply subscribe to our Crew TV You just Google it, Calgary Real Estate Wealth TV. And I would subscribe to that because you get these valuable tips. And the thing about Tim and myself is that we're totally honest with you guys. We'll tell you the good and bad. We're not here to sell you on everything. We're here to educate you. So thank you for joining in for our tip of the week.